Well, it happened. He's leaving, and it's time now for Nebraska to move on from Dylan Raiola.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, welcome. Big news yesterday. I'm Connor Happer. Mitch Sherman is here as well. This will, we went through a variety of different topics yesterday on the show because there was a whole bunch of stuff happening, and the last of which was football. Really, now Nebraska football goes right back to the top of the board here because the starting quarterback for the last two seasons has, he has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal, or at least he's told some people his intention to enter the transfer portal.
Or his agents have told some people of his intention to enter the transfer portal next month. This is how it happens. Today, Monday was a big day for portal entries in the QB carousel. It started to really hum. You saw TJ Lateef, the former, still current, but the Florida quarterback in Dylan's class, heading to the portal. Maybe Florida and Nebraska could just switch. They could swap. You saw probably not. I did hear part of your radio show on Monday talking about how TJ Lateef loves to throw interceptions. So yeah, it's not what Nebraska wants. Brendan Sorsby, how about that? He's in the transfer portal. The Cincinnati quarterback who could not beat Nebraska back in August, but had a great year. He's had a great career. I'm amazed that he has eligibility left, but he does. He's in the portal. We already knew about Sam Levitt, the former Michigan State and Arizona State quarterback. Aiden Childs, the former Michigan State quarterback, he's in the portal. So this is the stuff we have to talk about now for the next month.
Yeah, and the portal's not even open yet. And I'm glad that, we start there from a timing perspective, because just from, reading the writing on the wall and the tea leaves and whatever over the last couple of weeks, I do feel like that is a factor. The fact that the quarterback carousel started to turn today. As we've talked about on this show, and we talked about it last week, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody because it happened last offseason, and Dylan Raiola was in his camp or getting feelers all across the country. What's the situation look like? What's the money look like? And a variety of different things. And you don't really know until, the teams don't really know who they're going to go after until they see, who they can or who makes themselves sort of available. So the first people who get in on that train are going to have an opportunity. And that's what Dylan has been doing and his camp has been doing for the last couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, when the names start going in today, or I guess intending to go in today, then it becomes real. And then the spots start getting gobbled up really, really quickly. So I don't think that's a coincidence that once one kind of opened up today, the floodgates open for the quarterback carousel.
Yes, we are taping this on Monday. You're probably listening on Tuesday, but that's fine. That's fine. We needed to get this. We needed to get this out. Kind of an emergency evening podcast, so it'll be out early for everybody on Tuesday. If you're listening, perhaps you know that. Somebody else who went in the portal on Monday of local interest, Oklahoma State quarterback Zane Flores intends to enter the portal. This is news. He threw for 1,454 yards and 3 touchdowns for the one-win Cowboys of the Big 12. It was not a solid season for Oklahoma State, and Flores was sent to the bench at least once. They were just all over the map, and I think it's somewhat difficult to hold against a quarterback in that system all of the chaos or how the stats may look when there was all that chaos. Mike Gundy, of course, was fired mid-season, so we'll talk later in the show about what the path is that Nebraska should take with its quarterback position, because I think it's it's evident, it's very clear that the Huskers will look in the portal for a quarterback for certain. Already that was going to happen since Nebraska did not sign a QB in the early signing period. But I look at Flores at this point as a quarterback who's looking for a step down in size type of school, probably a G5 or even an FCS school with the way things went in his 3 seasons at Oklahoma State. But he is a Gretna kid. He does have the exposure to Matt Rhule, who tried to get him as a part of his first recruiting class at Nebraska. And just maybe he's somebody you could look at to come in and be a competitor, not I'm going to walk in and be the starter. But
yeah,
we'll get back to that when we talk about what Nebraska's path is for the quarterback position. But let's just start with this on Dylan. Was it worth it? Did Nebraska get what it was looking for? How much of what it was looking for did Nebraska get from the 2 years with Dylan Raiola, the former 5-star out of Beaufort, Georgia?
Yeah, this is not a black and white thing, because there's a lot on both sides of that. But I suppose if I'm to take all the pros and cons and all of what's been the last 2 years, it would add up to no for me. The juice was not worth the squeeze, in my opinion. I think what happened after Matt Rhule's first year here. Well, I mean, keep in mind they were about to be locked in with Kyle McCord, who had been the starter at Ohio State the year before that. And when he was on his visit to Nebraska, Dylan Raiola committed to Nebraska, and that happened, everything changed. And then when that happens, you get a 5-star player, 5-star quarterback, 5-star at that position with his personality and with his connections around the country. It becomes the timeline accelerates rapidly, right? And it becomes a little bit more about like, all right, what do we do to keep him here? What do we do to make him happy? How do we put people around him? What do we do to make him successful? All in the hopes that he stays. And maybe you lose sight of the bigger picture of the original plan of when Matt Rhule got here, 12 months prior to that, ever so slightly. Now they did get, I think he was an attraction as it pertains to Nebraska getting players in the portal, but the offense was never really able to get off the ground in 2 years. And that's with 2 different offensive coordinators. So there's a lot to it. But my blunt answer is no, it was not.
I would agree with you that this is in the gray area. He was the face of the program at Nebraska for 2 seasons. I think he raised the profile for Matt Rhule's program. He was an important piece for Nebraska to get over some of the first hurdles that Rhule had to clear. Getting to a bowl game was essential last year in season number 2, and without Dylan Raiola, I don't know that happens. If Nebraska signs the class that it had on December 10th in 2023 and then goes through the 2024 season without Dylan, I don't know that Nebraska's playing in the Pinstripe Bowl, and I think that needed to happen. It started now a run of getting back to the postseason. I realize this is another 7-win season. It's not what people wanted to see, but Raiola was injured on November 1st, going for the Nebraska's 7th win when it had just 2 losses. And I think he probably would have got it on that day if not for the broken leg. So there's going to be some revisionist history and a lot of talk. And I'm probably partaking in this in what I wrote on The Athletic that showed up on Monday afternoon about how he took Nebraska as far as he could, and that Nebraska took Dylan about as far as Nebraska was going to take Dylan, and it was best for both parties, considering that, to have a clean break right here, and it will be a fresh start for both. But that is said in the context of also understanding that he filled an important role in Matt Rhule's attempt to build this thing.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's definitely a lot to it. I think now would be a good time for a little bit of, retrospective on what Nebraska did and how they approached it. And, we talked about this with the defensive coordinator and all the different hirings and firings over the last couple of years. A lot of times what you do when a guy leaves is you try to replace him with the opposite. You try to replace him with a variety of different things, whether it be personality traits, characteristics, and then even play style. And I think Nebraska will probably look for, the signs are pointing on offense to something a little bit more dynamic, something a little bit more sleek and fast with some tempo and a quarterback that could really provide a spark. Maybe TJ Lateef is that guy. Maybe a guy with more experience out of the transfer portal who's started at a different Power 5 school or something like that could provide that as well. But yeah, I'm not so sure that Nebraska did all it could for Dylan, putting him in the best spot. And I'm not so sure that, because of that, Dylan wasn't able to reach his potential here. Obviously, I mean, there's more in the tank for Dylan. And Absolutely. So that's like you wrote, Mitch. I mean, that's pretty much the reason why he's not going to be here anymore.
All right, let's take a break, come back and sort through what Nebraska's options are at the QB position next year, how hard it's going to go for the portal, look at TJ Lateef and everything else that's going to be swirling around in 2026. That is next.
But first, a word from Omaha Steaks. The holidays are rolling around, and the holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and it's Omaha Steaks. They make it almost too simple for you, although I would disagree. Not too simple, just simple enough. Whether you're treating yourself this season, there we go, put the candy canes up, or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to your or their door. And now is the best time to jump in. Cyber sale still going on. Deals are big. Omaha Steaks is a wonderful, wonderful gift to give this holiday season. And the reaction is always fantastic. That's the best part about giving gifts, right? The people's reaction. So just imagine their reaction when they pull open the package and it says Omaha Steaks right on the front. It's hard for me to imagine anything better than that. So whether it be the steaks with rich flavor that you've come to expect, the meals, everything in between, burgers, whatever it might be, they make hosting the event that much better and giving a gift that much better this holiday season. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks at omahasteaks.com. 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during the cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details.
Back with you, Tuesday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. Connor, I wonder if you're going to feel sad, like something is missing from your life when you don't have things like this. We see Dylan Raiola there at a WWE event with the University, it says University of Nebraska football team. Things like this. There's Dylan signing the Declaration of Independence. One of our more creative listeners gave us that. He brought a certain kind of flair, a certain attention to the Nebraska football program that will not be there because there is no longer a five-star quarterback who brings a sideshow along for the ride. The Patrick Mahomes conversations certainly got exhausting, I think, for people who follow Nebraska football to have to deal with every time the Huskers showed up on a network that they'd not appeared on in a few months. The social media, whatever that followed that whole deal around. So it's going to quiet down in that sense a bit. I don't imagine that Nebraska will replace him with somebody who generates the same kind of conversation. Do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad? Do you think that's a mix of both?
I think it's good. I think it's good. I think from that perspective, you asked the question before, like, did he serve his purpose? So you can make the argument that type of attention and notoriety and just whatever. All conversation is good conversation, right? All pub is good pub. Some people have said that before. I don't know that that's exactly true, but he definitely brought that to the table. And for that reason, Nebraska had an elevated profile, but it doesn't matter when the profile is elevated. People are just talking about you as more of a punchline when Nebraska continued to not win games during that period of time. So I think the best path, and the path that fits Matt Rhule the best, and the path that fits Nebraska football as a program best is to do their work quietly and get better, just straight up get better without trying to manufacture anything and whatever it might be to raise the profile. It's all recruiting and whatever, and you're trying to get the word out there and you're trying to get the name out there. But the best way to do it forever, it always has been and always will be, is just go about your business, play your style of football, and win games. That's it.
So who is the favorite as of today? If you're going to name a name, clearly it is TJ Lateef. But do you put the chances of TJ Lateef as the starter at Nebraska in 2026 at more than 50%? Where do we fall here?
You got TJ Lateef.
We got TJ Lateef. I would say less than. He has the greatest percentage out of any one person, but because
we don't know the name of whoever else might be in there.
But if you laid out like the odds board like this, and it said TJ Lateef minus whatever, or plus whatever, and then it said transfer portal quarterback A, whoever that is, plus whatever, I think that person would have higher odds. We just don't have an identity on that person yet, and we're not going to for a few weeks at least.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think Nebraska can go one of two ways, and I think this is a good way to get into this conversation. Nebraska can take path A, what's behind door one, and say, we're going to go all in and try to use the $3 million plus, a big chunk of it that was owed to Dylan Raiola, that was promised to Dylan Raiola, that was given to Dylan Raiola in 2025, and we're going to use that in 2026 on a quarterback because it's the most important position on the field. And TJ Lateef did not do enough in the 2025 season in his 3 opportunities to start. He'll get another one here on December 31st to inspire confidence that he is the answer, that he is the quarterback, and you are going to put all your eggs into that basket. That's option number one. It's sensible. And then there's option number 2, which is to say, let's go get somebody that you can spend a little bit less on, that you can find value in. You can take the Texas Tech approach and have Baron Morton as your quarterback. How many people in America, what percentage of college football fans know the name of the Texas Tech quarterback? The Red Raiders are the number 4 seed in the college football playoff, in large part because they play great defense and they're a good football team. You don't need a superstar quarterback to be a college football playoff contender. So will Nebraska look to go down that kind of a route and find somebody who is a solid quarterback and can compete with TJ Lateef through this offseason, and then leave more money, more NIL money to pick up an impact defensive lineman, an impact offensive lineman, a running back to replace Emmett Johnson? These are all areas that Nebraska has needs. And is it best to use all of the money coming back into the system from Raiola on a replacement for him?
Maybe not. I could very easily see them. I think as it stands, and you just approach it on a day-to-day basis in this world, in the portal, and when the portal opens, or doing their work behind the scenes right now, whoever they have connections to. Like, I think if the right if you get some traction on the right situation, then yeah, if the price is right, then Nebraska would love to have an experienced starting quarterback who's got a resume and has some stats behind him. But if it doesn't work out and the situation isn't right, then I could very easily see them just handing the reins over to TJ Lateef, in which case, like you said, Mitch, you're still probably looking in the portal just for someone with a different profile.
You need somebody else, because your backup then is Marcos Davila, and he has been getting reps this month, but we know nothing about him and his readiness to be able to play at this level.
Right. So a lot of different ways you could do it. I'll be curious to see what the initial days of the of the carousel sort of look like for Nebraska, and if there are all the names that popped in Monday, the Brennan Sorsbys, the DJ Lagways, the Aiden Childs, whoever else, big names that popped into the portal on Monday. I would not expect Nebraska to be necessarily players for them unless they wanted to go all in on one of them and really.
That's the question. Because Nebraska has the resources to go all in, but will it? Because there are so many other holes to fill on this team.
Yeah, I think it's possible that it lands somewhere in the middle. Maybe not one of those top tier guys that's going to end up at Oregon or whatever big spots with championship aspirations. Indiana is going to be one of those next year. I think it's possible to thread the needle and not have one of the superstar names.
Yeah,
but also still get a guy who's going to provide more than TJ Lateef or more than TJ Lateef would on his resume at this point.
Indiana, as the number 1 seed in the college football playoff and the newly crowned Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, is a major player for a quarterback in the portal, isn't it? Mm-hmm. 2 years in a row, Curt Cignetti has gone to the portal and done great things with the quarterback. This year, that is the understatement of the college football season, that Curt Cignetti did good things with the quarterback that he got out of the portal. So Nebraska, on the pecking order of teams in the attractiveness level as a destination from the portal, sits how many rungs, how many levels, like if you group them into different categories, behind Indiana at this point?
I mean, it's not in the same tier. If you tiered it out,
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, if they're not in the same tier as far as attractiveness at this point, because like you said, I mean, Indiana could go out and say, well, Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman. Curtis Rourke got what, like 6th or 10th or whatever it was last year, and we lost 2 games the entire time over the last 2 years. So yeah, you could go there, have a chance to win the Heisman Trophy and win a national championship. So that's way up there. Oregon's way up there with the with the pieces that they have around and the money that they have to deal with. And there's probably, I don't know, a half dozen or more others that are going to be looking for starting quarterbacks who are going to occupy those sort of top spots. I don't think Nebraska's in that group.
Word on the street is that Sorsby is going to be targeted heavily by Texas Tech. So Tech has done this in this first season of going all in with the big money and loaded up on defense. Smart move. And the next step reportedly is to go after a big name quarterback in the portal, and Sorsby would be a 1-year guy. So yeah, you're going to be playing against the big boys for sure. And I say the big boys, like the teams that are coming off of playoff appearances and have tremendous resources. Oregon's in the playoff, big time money. Texas Tech's in the playoff, huge sugar daddy donor, gives them whatever they want. Indiana, I mean, people are motivated to support Indiana right now. Miami will have money. So does Nebraska have to look at somebody like Jaden Craig, the portal entry from Harvard, who put up good numbers, threw for almost 3,000 yards this year, 25 touchdowns, 7 picks. I don't know. He's one of the quarterbacks whose names were floating out there as a likely Power 4 transfer when he went in the portal, but he's probably been overshadowed at this point by the Monday portal entries and those who have gone in the last week or so. But it will be fascinating to watch where Nebraska's at on the pecking order and what Nebraska targets in order to fill up that position.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the bowl game is a pretty big deal for TJ Lateef, not to view it as a 1-game audition because he's had a few here and I think they know what he's about, but it will probably tell you a lot about how we feel about him, how the fan base feels about him, stuff like that. So like that could be somewhat of a helper in a decision-making process too.
And for TJ Lateef,
that's a dilemma
because you don't have Emmett Johnson, your running back. You don't have Rocco Spindler, your right guard. and you're going against now Utah is a physical defense, not necessarily a defense that has shut everyone down. I don't know. And TJ, of course, is coming off of the hamstring injury suffered against Iowa. That's a tall order to say, hey, here's your chance, man. Like, this is going to help dictate what Nebraska wants to do as far as going after do you want to go after a $3 million quarterback, or do you want to go after a $1 million quarterback? Will the Las Vegas Bowl help Nebraska decide? I don't know if that's a great spot for TJ Lateef.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff to sort through over these next couple of weeks here. We have more angles and more arms to the Dylan Raiola story. What's next for Nebraska? Just one of them when we return here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right, a word from GameTime, because the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time, it is going to be massive in 26. But let's be honest, getting tickets is the hardest part. That's why the GameTime app is clutch. Finally gives fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With GameTime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, the hands of the fans, and makes going to World Cup games realistic instead of impossible. Pick a game, tap a section, have your tickets locked in within minutes. There's no confusion, no hunting for the fine print. Prices include the fees up front, which is great. I love it. No last-second surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, every match, every concert or event with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. GameTime.
Welcome back. All right. So now we talk about where Nebraska goes. We touched on it quite a bit in this last segment. Not necessarily who, but where does the offense go now? And what kind of
great question.
What kind of quarterback do you need to put in that position? And also keep in mind all of the other players that, premier type of players that they're going to want to add around whoever that quarterback might be. It'll just be really fascinating to see which sort of direction they take us, and then follow the money. Where are they going to invest into? Is it a premier running back? Is it a premier quarterback? Is it a premier wide receiver? Obviously you still have needs on the offensive and defensive line, but I'm really thinking a lot about where the offense needs to go. And like I said before, it needs to get, in my opinion, faster and sharper on that side of the ball. And I do think in order to do that, you're going to need to bring in somebody with a little bit more dynamic aspect to their game at that position.
I think, and I thought about this on Monday, Nebraska, for all of the accomplishments, all of what Dylan Raiola brought to the program, and as much as he helped Matt Rhule get this thing off the ground, the Huskers started to move away from the style that he played at quarterback very early in his time in Lincoln. In fact, before he played a game, Nebraska sought and received a commitment from TJ Lateef, who was a known commodity as more of a mobile QB. And then shortly after that, the Huskers began to pursue Trey Taylor, who is now the future face of the program, 2027 commit, less than a year away from signing with Nebraska, and somebody who is anticipated to be a multi-year starter in this program, maybe a 5-star himself by the time he graduates from high school in Chicago. This one thing from Taylor, he did weigh in on Monday on social media in response to the news about Dylan Raiola. And Trey Taylor says, part of why I'm a Husker is because of Dylan. Gave me a ton of great advice during my recruitment. Gave his all to the program while he was at Nebraska. Like his gameplay or not, we should all respect his efforts and him. That being said, I'm proud to be a Husker. N versus everybody. #GBR. Good luck moving forward, DR.
And remember, Mitch, I mean, they went out and so that's a good snapshot there of what Dylan sort of provided you and what he didn't also at the same time. But remember you mentioned Lateef, who they took commitment from, and Taylor, who they have a commitment from now. They went after Jeff Sims right away. It's not at all the type style of quarterback, and you're a little hamstrung by the timing and who you have connections to because they were very new at that time. But just it doesn't. They
did do that, didn't they? That was real.
That happened. Dylan Raiola was different from everybody else, and they figured, all right, well, let's take this guy and build around him, and he can lift us up. He can drag us to wherever we're going, and that didn't end up being the case for a variety of different reasons, both on Nebraska's fault and on Dylan's fault. And so I think they're in the position where they really have to, think hard about what their style of play is, what they want. And the more you think about it, the more the signs point to not a guy like Dylan Raiola, not the guy with his, you want all of his arm talent. You want those skills, but Nebraska needs a little extra added, stuff in the run game with the quarterback.
Yeah, that probably points away from Zane Flores, if that was ever going to be an option. And when I brought him up earlier, it's more just that would be somebody you would bring in as a depth piece to compete with TJ Lateef. And Nebraska probably does want more certainty in the QB room than to have a couple of inexperienced guys. But he's not. He's more mobile than Raiola, but he's not dynamic in the sense that you have a quarterback who needs. What Nebraska needs when you assess the Big Ten defenses and what we saw this year throughout the Big Ten season, you need a quarterback who requires the defense to always keep an eye. It can't just be like, well, that guy can run a little bit, but he's not going to kill us. So we're going to leave him some space and just allow our players to use their superior athleticism to go drag him down if he ever does decide to take off. He may get 10 yards now and then. That isn't necessarily what Nebraska's looking for. They want somebody who puts the fear into a defense so that they have to strategize, and it adds elements to the Nebraska offense as a result.
See, I think you can do it. You don't have to have a running quarterback. You don't have to have a dual threat quarterback, but I just believe at the position where Nebraska's at right now, as far as their total roster talent is concerned, they do. And, I think they thought Dylan would bring things along faster in that regard. And they thought Dylan would probably be better himself in that regard. And it didn't happen that way. In order to, you're asking a lot of the quarterback, you're asking him to progress through things and take leadership of a team and be in the huddle and make, long progressions and dropbacks, and that puts pressure on everybody else to be perfect too. And so you're just trying to take that pressure off a little bit off of everybody else. And you saw what happened when Lateef came in. It seemed a little simpler for everybody. The offensive line got better, So I think there's a bunch of stuff that Nebraska needs, but at the stage that they're at right now with their total roster talent, they need to minimize they need to gain ground in the margin for error category, and that a quarterback with that skill set would provide that.
Last question here before we close the book on this conversation today. We'll continue to talk about this through the next few weeks. Okay, so you don't have a face of the program coming as December comes to a close and the portal prepares to open. What kind of an impact does this absence at the QB spot have on Nebraska's ability to attract receivers, a running back, offensive linemen, even defensive players in the portal? We saw Raiola involved with players all over the roster in his 2 off seasons in Lincoln.
I think you start at the quarterback, and then it hopefully is able to fall into place after that. And I think I think that works with the timeline that we're on right now, as far as, who goes into the portal when, or who declares their intention to go into the portal when. So I think Nebraska will generally take care of that first, and then see if there's any doors that get opened because of that afterwards. But like we said before, I don't think they're going to get some star quarterback that is like, whoa, I gotta play with this guy, and I have to be at Nebraska because this guy's there. I don't think they're going to get that type of player. They might not even want that type of player. So you have to kind of decide that first, and then it'll all sort of fall into place after that, I think.
Yeah, as they start to put this together, make sure that TJ Lateef is taken care of. He's an important piece for Nebraska. His value just went up for Nebraska. He's the only experienced quarterback on the roster, and they have to retain him before they can really start to put the other pieces together, including whoever else comes in at the quarterback spot. So nobody is a lock to stay, no matter what the situation is. And TJ is an important player to make sure that he's remembered in all of this as it moves forward into January. All right. Thanks for joining us today on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I want to invite you to be a part of continuing to join us. Find us on social media at LO Nebraska. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. And if Locked On made your Spotify Wrap, prove it on social media. Secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag the National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. They'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever national 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen Locked On College Football. Thank you for joining us.